Welcome to the Health Hobby Podcast, the place for busy moms searching for simple solutions to weight loss, more energy, better nutrition, fitness, and healthy living time management. I'm your host, Amanda Ford. Stick with me and make health your hobby as I guide you through simple steps and skill-building exercises so you can finally hit those dreamy health and weight loss goals. Take it from me, it's time to kick all those fad diets and quick fix workouts to the curb. It's all about slowing down and finding your very own rhythm of healthy living, because when you find your health, you find your joy. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to another week on the Health Hobby Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Ford. Welcome back. And today's episode is all about understanding the must-know nutrition vocabulary that sets the foundation for weight loss and healthy living. So knowing these terms will make learning about food, calories, and nutrition so much easier as we dive deeper into weight loss strategies on the podcast. And I want to start today by saying this is the first of a series of episodes that are going to be solely focused on nutrition, calories, intake, so you can get a firm grip on the concepts of basic nutrition. So you have that in your back pocket and you have the skill and the education, the knowledge, the know-how to manage your weight loss strategy via the nutrition portion of it all on your own. You won't ever wonder again, what to do. You'll always have a solution. So let's simplify the jargon and build your confidence today during this first episode of the nutrition series. Before I dive into today's episode, it's important for me to remind you to always consult your physicians before starting a weight loss plan or changing your current eating style. Also, it's really important for us to realize that nutrition is a true science. There are some super smart people out there who get their PhDs and degrees in this subject. The discussion of nutrition is extremely extensive and based on biological, physiological, and even mechanical and anatomical functions that all work together. That was a mouthful. But we could even go nitty-gritty and talk about what happens when you chew your food or when you're sleeping. But we're not going to go that deep. However, if this topic sparks your interest, I do recommend that you take time to learn even more. So nutrition is extremely important. And I think we could be like, yeah, obviously it is. But not only for those of us who have weight loss and fitness goals, but for energy, mood, and just overall wellness. It's truly medicine. And I say that very carefully. I'm not a physician or a registered dietitian, but from my own personal experience. And I think with any of the knowledge that one has access to nowadays, even if you don't have extensive nutrition training, like you didn't go to college for it, or you haven't taken classes in nutrition, or this is a totally new subject to you, the general consensus out there, even your physician will tell you, is that if you eat smarter, you have a basic understanding, you're utilizing that understanding, you're eating clean, you're getting the appropriate amount of nutrients that you need, you're gonna feel a whole lot better. So making nutrition a hobby for you to learn about it is a really fun way and extremely rewarding endeavor. I actually did that myself. I think for me, one of the reasons my podcast is called The Health Hobby is because it really is my hobby. I choose to read books, articles, all the podcasts I listen to, I didn't say all, but a lot of the podcasts I listen to are about the science of nutrition, physical fitness, specific nutrients. I can get really deep on the stuff that I listen to and I read about. I keep up on all the science and the topics, stay informed on new recommendations that come out, which happen a lot. And as things become trendy, I kind of want to know what's going on there. And when the science shifts, which, it really does frequently. And I think that's what keeps people from wanting to dig deeper and kind of learn these basic skills in nutrition, because it can seem overwhelming and extremely complicated. But I hope to share with you guys as I work through this nutrition series that it's actually not. There are recommendations that change here and there about how much of one nutrient you should have versus another, or, you should eat this certain way. All those are always shifting as the science of nutrition is constantly studied, just like with any other science. But there are some basic fundamentals of nutrition as a science that are tried and true. By learning them and using them to your advantage for your weight loss, It is a game changer. They are not complicated. They're actually quite straightforward and simple. And I hope to convey that simplicity through these next podcast episodes for you guys, so you are well equipped to get into your kitchen and make some decisions on your own without feeling overwhelmed or confusion. Learning about nutrition at a very basic level will help you make informed decisions that can have huge results on your overall health. So I hope to spark the interest in you today and as the series goes on. And a fire that burns super hot in my heart is that I truly believe and I know that our country would be a whole lot healthier and we would have much less obesity if more people were educated about the basics of nutrition. This is so crucial that once you learn these concepts, you literally have the answers to all of your weight loss challenges: energy, mood, sleep. I don't mean to simplify a remedy for those challenges, like maybe you're not sleeping, you're overweight, you have poor energy. I don't want to simplify it down to it's just your food, because I realize those are extremely complex. But bottom line, if you are feeling some kind of way, like bloated, exhausted, lethargic, heavy, moody, anxious, overweight, physically sluggish, even having generalized pain in areas, of course, check with your healthcare provider first if you're feeling any of those things. But having a serious look at your nutrition habits and cleaning them up a bit can and will change your life. And at times, of course, with the sign off of your physician, and if you really dive in and implement what you know about nutrition as you learn to help you make better choices, you can boost your immune system, work to avoid cancers, diabetes, and other metabolic conditions that can result from being overweight and inactive and just eating poorly altogether. The list of benefits is so long that it's just incredibly important that we understand the basic fundamentals of nutrition so we can live longer, feel better, and for our purposes, lose weight. Eating clean and what I like to call smart nutrition, so that's when we're making those informed decisions based on what we know about nutrition and what we need for our own personal goals, can help save your life in some cases. So I know I talk a lot about weight loss, and that's the lens that I teach these concepts from, but it's important that we think about all the good and health benefits that will come out of your focus for weight loss while you're using basic nutrition concepts. I've said this multiple times. I will say it again. Weight loss is the cherry on top. So everything else that comes health benefit wise, when you're taking these smart nutrition actions, you're physically, doing a little more physical movement every day. It's just, everything just bubbles up, all these other great health benefits. But yeah, you're also losing weight at the same time. It's just so exciting. And I get excited talking about it. I think you guys can probably get that by now. Basic nutrition concepts are so powerful that you may even ask yourself once you start learning throughout this series, why have I spent all this money on these weight loss shakes, or spent weeks or months trying to hold on to dear life to eat this ridiculous eating routine that you probably don't even really like anyway? And most people that are just trying to live their life day to day, it would be terribly difficult for them to maintain, and it is for you. So why are you torturing yourself? Once you learn these concepts, you're like, wow, it was really that easy. Once you get a solid understanding of these basic concepts of nutrition, you'll be like, why didn't I pause and learn this sooner? That's because it works. It works every time, you guys. And it's really the math that works once you get into, how the calorie deficits, and how to balance that. Well, we will get there. Don't worry. So for weight loss, we really focus on what we call a calorie deficit. I'll define that later in the podcast, and eating within that deficit. So that's basically just like a calorie budget. If you think of like a bank account, we'll talk more about that later in the episode. That right there, though, is the answer to weight loss, period. So if you're eating within a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. And we want to make sure we're eating in a smart calorie deficit, a topic that I did talk about in a previous episode. But don't worry, you're like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, next week, we are going to be talking about the math of nutrition for weight loss. So you will get that answer. Right now, I just want you to understand that if you're eating within a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. That is the answer. There's no other special eating routine out there. that will do it because they all rely. It doesn't matter how you're eating or what you're eating, it all is dependent on eating in a calorie deficit. So I want to make that very clear. And I'll probably say that multiple times throughout this nutrition series. But I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't explain to you how to get there. Again, we will talk about the math of nutrition next week, but we got to start with the basics first. So there's a bunch of vocabulary that you should become familiar with before you jump in to using a calorie tracker so you can make sure that you're eating within a calorie deficit for weight loss. Because if you don't understand the language, this is going to be kind of hard for you. And I never ever want things to be hard for you all. I want them to be simple, and easy and accessible. When I hosted my very first online weight loss group, it was way back in 2017. I gave all the women a nutrition plan. I said, okay, we're going to be eating in a calorie deficit. Here are some food recommendations for you. And I was all excited. I sent them this beautifully made document to help them, it was their nutrition plan we were going to work through for 6 weeks. And more than 5 of them came to me immediately after I passed that nutrition workbook out to them. And they said, hey, Amanda, what is a calorie? And they were kind of embarrassed that they didn't really understand what that word was. And I was excited that they asked because I get excited about teaching this stuff, but I was able to realize then and there that many people don't know what these terms mean. And it's funny because we see them everywhere. They're on literally all the food packaging. It's even on restaurant menus now. So not even calories. I think we even have the macronutrients. I'll define that in a minute here. On some of our menus now, they're telling us how much fat, how much protein, how much carbs. Like we're really getting into the nitty gritty of giving the public nutrition information. So you guys can all of us, we can make informed decisions. But again, it's like reading a foreign language you don't understand. So it's important to get that foundation under your belt so you can use that information to your benefit for your weight loss strategy. So with that said, let's get started. This is going to be the very first episode in my nutrition podcast series. I'm so excited. I love talking about nutrition. There's going to be some learning in phases as we go because I don't want to push all the things into your ears all at once. And today we're just starting with the language of nutrition. That's all we're going to be talking about. So I'll try to make it as fun and spunky as I can because I know you'd probably are like, I don't want to hear you list off a bunch of words and definitions. No, we're going to kind of dive deeper. I'll give you some examples so you can, visualize and understand where those terms can be applied to how you're eating and where they pop up in your eating decisions. Obviously, there are thousands of terms we could talk about, but I'm only going to be focusing on key terms you will need to understand for implementing your weight loss strategy. So if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And if you have questions at any time during this episode, go right down to the comments and leave your questions down there in the YouTube comments. Or if you're listening on audio, you can click the link in the show notes and send me your questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. I won't be going into every nitty gritty details. So if you do want more information, feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to have those discussions with you. All right, let's get into our first vocab word, which is nutrition. What the heck is nutrition? Well, when we talk about nutrition, we're talking about biological processes in which our body obtains nutrients. That's another word. I'm going to define that next, which allows us to grow, repair, regulate, and maintain all those physiological functions to maintain life. So what are those functions to maintain life? So me talking right now, breathing, immunity, thinking, cell regeneration. So like when we cut ourselves, or even cell just generation in general. So growth, like think if you were pregnant. So your body's working hard there, like creating new cells. Every single muscle movement, from the tiny muscles in your eyes that move as you read and focus on the world, to those large, big power moves when we're lifting weights or dancing or getting up out of a chair or reaching for something in the cupboard. Every physiological function requires nutrition. That is the nutrients that we get from food. So let's talk about next, what are nutrients? Nutrients are substances that our bodies use to live, grow, and function properly. So I already kind of defined, it's kind of the same as nutrition is us eating the food. Like, how do we obtain the food? Well, sometimes we're not eating for all nutrients. I'll get to that in a minute, but how are we obtaining these elements that we need to stay alive, grow, and function properly? The nutrients are the actual substances. So the things in the food, the elements in the food, the molecules in the food, the chemical compounds in the food, in every single bite we eat provides fuel in the form of nutrients to our body. So I hope that makes sense. The act of nutrition is us taking in the nutrients that we need. So our body uses the nutrients as fuel, like gasoline, to get all those metabolic functions going. Okay, so let's talk about the types of nutrients. So at a high level, there's two types of nutrients. So the first one is a non-essential nutrient. So a non-essential nutrient, these are substances that your body can create all by itself. I get so excited thinking about this. I'm such a nerd, you guys. Like, how cool is that? That is crazy to me. The human body is absolutely mind-boggling sometimes. Let me give you an example of some non-essential nutrients. Some amino acids are non-essential. So those are the building blocks of proteins. Certain vitamins and minerals can also be synthesized internally. So those are non-essential things. So things that we do not need to get from outside sources into the body. Our body actually just creates these things on its own, which is so cool. I love it. Your body's like its own little lab in there, and like just creating non-essential nutrients to help keep you going. So you can always just tap yourself on the back, be like, thanks, body. But I think that's even more fuel to our fire here. Like, yes, our body is creating these nutrients for us. So why does it matter what I eat? Well, we want to give it good fuel. We want the fuel that it's using to make these non-essential nutrients high quality and good for us. So it's working at an optimal level to create these necessary non-essential nutrients. So here are some examples of non-essential nutrients. Of course, there's a long list, but vitamin D. So vitamin D we can get from food as well. So we actually need to get vitamin D from food. And though our body does synthesize vitamin D when we're in the sun. Isn't that amazing? So that's why it's important to get outside, get some sunshine on your skin. I get really amped up about vitamin D. So I have a study that I found. I was trying to get the data. I'm sure there's a more recent study, but I found an Oregon State study from 2017 that stated that 94% of people are deficient. So in the US are deficient in vitamin D. You guys, get outside for like 15 minutes with your skin exposed. Of course, this gets into the like sunscreen debate. Like, that's not what this podcast is about. I mean, 10 minutes, you're probably going to be fine, and then pop on some sunscreen. But we need to get vitamin D. One of the ways is through the sun in our body. Like, I think of us like little plants when I think about vitamin D. Like, think of how a plant would behave or live if it didn't get sunlight, right? If photosynthesis, it needs the sun. We need the sun too. And yes, you can get vitamin D through food as well. I know our milk is fortified with vitamin D. I wish more people would just go outside and go for a walk and get some sunlight, because we spend so much time inside. But low vitamin D, you guys, is linked to all kinds of things. And it's weird stuff too, like depression, anxiety, muscle weakness. So if you're feeling kind of lethargic, tired, there's a long list. I even saw a study, who published the study? I can't remember, but it was like using vitamin D as a treatment to ADHD. It's powerful. It's nutrient. We gotta get it. Get outside. Get high vitamin D enriched foods. Take a vitamin D supplement. Again, check with your physician before doing any of those things. It's a powerful non-essential nutrient, but I want to stretch that eating smart isn't just for weight loss. Like, look at all these things that I just listed that, if you're struggling with them, you're like, maybe I should take some vitamin D, right? So it's not just all about the weight loss. And I could go on a tangent about vitamin D like forever and ever, but let's just put that one on the back burner for another episode. But some other examples of non-essential nutrients are cholesterol, which is produced in the liver. So this one, like vitamin D, we can also consume and get into our body, but we also make cholesterol in the liver, which is pretty cool. Another example of non-essential nutrients are amino acids like glycine and alanine. So amino acids, I don't want to get into like a whole like chemistry talk, but amino acids are pieces of protein. So proteins are in little amino acid chains, if you think of it like that. So think of like a little wooden train set, and they each have little cars, right? So each car is a different type of amino acid. And when they link together to make the full train, that becomes a particular type of protein. And each protein has a different job. And each amino acid is the driver of different jobs. So we have lots of different proteins in our body that are responsible for all types of functions like breaking down food, muscle repair, and even immune support. So that was a crash course in non-essential nutrients. And we don't really need to understand that concept too deeply for weight loss, but I want you to understand that there are things that we eat that help us that make us feel good and keep us energized, keep us healthy, keep us from getting sick. And there's things that we don't eat that our body makes ourselves. And the reason I want to emphasize that is that when we eat stuff better, I already said this, our body can more effectively make these non-essential nutrients, driving better health and more energy and just, feeling our best. Okay, so we talked about non-essential nutrients. Let's talk about essential nutrients. So essential nutrients are nutrients our body does not produce on its own. So that means we need to get them from food or supplements. So some examples are also amino acids. So not all amino acids, I kind of talked about them just a minute ago, like the little pieces of the train making a protein. Not all of them are non-essential. Some of them we have to eat. So the examples I have listed here are lysine and tryptophan, omega-3 fatty acids. So that's heavily prevalent in like salmon, so nuts and seeds, and vitamins like vitamin C, minerals like iron. And I want to just shout out like fruits and veggies for vitamin C. So veggies are always kind of left out of the conversation when we're saying, oh, where do we get our vitamin C? Well, everyone always goes straight to citrus, high vitamin C, watermelon, super high vitamin C, right? Fruit is just like chock full of it. But do not forget that veggies, like green veggies, just veggies in general, they have a lot of vitamin C too. So another reason that eating fruits and veggies is essential, not just for vitamin C, but for other essential nutrients, right? So, iron, I mentioned, red meat, turkey is high in iron. I became iron deficient when I was pregnant, and my doctor was like, oh, just take an iron supplement. Well, it's a best practice to try to get your essential nutrients, if you're low in something, through whole foods versus supplementation. That's a best practice. Sometimes we can't hit those targets without supplementation on top of eating. So I just want to say that that's probably yet another episode to talk about, supplementation versus eating whole foods and which ones to do, which ones to focus on supplementation versus eating whole foods. There I go again on another tangent. I did a quick Google search on high iron foods, and I found a bunch of, dark green veggies and turkey. And I just made sure that I really tried my best to eat high amounts of those so I could bring my iron levels up. And women in particular are susceptible to low iron. So if you're feeling kind of sluggish and not super great, go get your iron levels checked. Of course, you have to go to your doctor to do that, but that could be one of the things that is really keeping you in that exhausted phase. It is very strong. If you have low iron, you just can't get out of like the fog of just feeling tired and sluggish and exhausted. A lot of the times that is a sign of iron deficiency, and it's really prevalent in women. So if you're feeling like that, go get your iron levels checked, and maybe you can start feeling better by eating more iron. I love eating turkey sandwiches, spinach and things like that. I can incorporate into my food more often if I'm low in iron. So another tangent. Thanks for sticking with me. But let's talk about why these essential nutrients matter. So they're critical for your body's health, energy levels, and even your weight loss success. Listen, the essential nutrients, you have to eat them. We can't get them anywhere else, and that's why they're so important. Why does the talk about essential versus non-essential nutrients matter for weight loss? Well, when we're on a weight loss journey, understanding which nutrients you need to prioritize is key, but here's the thing, we need to prioritize all of them. For example, getting enough essential nutrients like protein, healthy fats, and vitamins will help you lose weight while staying healthy and energized. So we want to have that energy. We don't want to just be in a calorie deficit because we're just eating protein all day. We want to make sure we're eating a balanced variety of foods. So we're hitting all these key markers, right? Non-essential, we're helping the body create non-essential nutrients, and we're taking in those essential nutrients so we feel good and have energy to work out and experience life and feel good. So this is kind of getting into the what to eat discussion, which will be a whole entire episode in this series. But I just want you to recognize that ensuring a smart balance of both of these non-essential and essential nutrients is required for optimal function just in general in life. And from a weight loss perspective, we're talking about since you're going to be eating less food, you really want to make sure you're paying attention to ensuring you're getting enough of both of these. And the way that you ensure that you get enough of both is that you eat high quality essential nutrients, so you're fueling your body's metabolic functions to make those non-essential vitamins and minerals and other amino acids, for example. Let's get into our next vocab word, the calorie. So what is a calorie? This was the first question. I shared that little story with you guys. This is the first question I ever got in my weight loss groups that I ran. So let me just tell you what a calorie is. It's a unit of energy. That's all it is. It is a unit of energy that measures the energy provided by a particular food and used by the body. So I could get really detailed here and tell you that how a calorie is, the unit of a calorie is determined. It's actually related to heat and energy. If you go back to 7th grade chemistry class, you have to have energy for something to be heated up, and for something to be hot, there has to be energy put behind it. So a calorie is a unit of the energy that the body uses for its metabolic function. So the easiest analogy I like to use, comparison I like to do is the gas tank, right? Like, what are we putting in our gas tank? Well, our body, being our car in this example, when we, put the gas nozzle into the car and we're watching those numbers go up in gallons, that's a unit of gas, gallons. That's how much was going into the car. Think of it as the same way. A unit of fuel going into our body is a calorie. So why does this matter? So understanding what a calorie is the foundation for creating a calorie deficit, which is the key to weight loss. I think I've said that 3 times already in this episode, but if you don't know what a calorie is, and I'm going to be telling you, hey, I need you to eat X amount of calories because you weigh this much, this is how old you are, it's all based on an actual equation. It's not just some made up number, which we'll talk about next week. It's really, really going to be detrimental to you because it's just going to be an arbitrary number. So when you look on your food labels, you'll see it's the top number on there. It says calories, and I'm just making up numbers. Like perhaps your cereal says 150 calories for 1 cup of cereal. So that means that you're giving yourself 150 units of energy from that cup of cereal. And further down the food label, again, I'm not going to get into the food label. That is an episode I've been planning to get published, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But even more, it breaks down what those calories are made of. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second, about what those other elements are on the food label. But in general, super simple, guys, a calorie is a unit of energy. So for our purposes in weight loss, we need to work to be in a calorie deficit. So a calorie deficit is when we're consuming fewer calories than your body needs to maintain its current metabolic function and its current weight. So we want to eat less energy. We want to eat less calories, right? That's the same. And use more energy or use more calories. So our body is pulling from our energy stores, i.e., we're losing weight because our fat holds on as our energy stores. So it has to go to our store bank, our surplus of energy, and use that. And that's why we lose weight. It's actually, that's as simple as that. Of course, there's a lot of physiological, like nitty gritty we could get into. I'm not going to bore you with that. Let's just keep on going down here and talk about those the big three things that you will also see on a food label: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. So the terminology for those nutrients, those are essential nutrients, they're called macronutrients. So a macronutrient is a nutrient that we need to eat in large amounts relative to like vitamins and minerals. We need them in much smaller quantities. But proteins, carbohydrates, and fats we need in large amounts. So why does this matter? Balancing macronutrients can optimize weight loss and improve your body composition. So there's an eating style called If It Fits Your Macros. And what it's geared towards is calculating the exact number of macronutrients in a ratio per grams that you need daily while you're tracking in efforts to hit your calorie goal. So again, a topic for another episode. There's so many deep dives we could do with just one item I'm talking about today. I know it's a lot, but the reason I bring up If It Fits Your Macros eating style is because it is focused on paying attention to your calorie intake. It's actually a really useful thing to learn to do. It's advanced in that you have to do some calculations for ratios based on your weight and your caloric need based on what you're doing, but you're going to be doing that anyway when we just get the overall total calories. But If It Fits Your Macros is based on getting a specific number of calories from each particular macronutrients. Again, it's a little bit advanced, but I like to bring it up because people ask me about it. But overall, the big three: protein, fats, carbohydrates, they're all essential nutrients. Remember, we talked about essential nutrients, meaning that we are required to eat them in large amounts relative to other nutrients like vitamins and minerals. And I personally would like to emphasize that all of these proteins, fats, carbs should be eaten. Now, if you're diabetic or have a protein condition or some other medical condition that requires you not to have one or a couple of these particular nutrients in certain amounts or whatever, that's a different story. Again, that's why I always emphasize checking with your physician. But for those of us who are generally healthy, we should be eating all of these nutrients. I'm going to share with you very candidly that I am not a big fan of the eating styles that eliminate one or perhaps two of these essential macronutrients. I'm sure we could debate this till the end of time, and I do see value in that some of these eating styles do and have benefited others. And I never like to discount that. I like to actually just research more and see why it worked. And I really encourage, when you listen to my podcast, my goal would be for you to take the information and apply it to your life and make it so it works for you. So if eating on one of these alternative eating styles is what works for you and you're able to maintain it and you're still maintaining optimal health, I think that's perfect and you're doing a great job. But I just want to share that, some of these eating styles benefit others. But if you were to work with me as your weight loss coach, I would not be steering you to be eating, for example, like a ketogenic diet, which is extremely high fat, low carbs. And if you're in a true ketogenic diet, you're eating really, really low carbohydrate. And again, we could debate this. The ketogenic diet is great for particular people with diabetes. And it was actually invented for people with epilepsy. So again, I'm not going down that rabbit hole, but it's not bad. I'm just sharing my perspective, as my goal is to encourage women to eat a balanced diet with all the essential nutrients and non-essential nutrients, because that's how our bodies will really thrive. So I just wanted to share that. I know I might get some flack here and there, like, oh, I did keto or I eat high protein, which I will let you know candidly also, that's what works for me. But overall, I really want to encourage at first, when you're just starting out kind of managing your nutrition, just eat a balanced diet. I mean, that's a best practice, period, end of story. And I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't say that. But once you kind of get an advanced understanding, a more in-depth understanding of nutrition, how your body functions, what works well for you, even with working with your healthcare provider, perhaps, you can absolutely do whatever you like. And I do encourage you to use whatever method works best for you, the method that you can maintain that will get you to your weight loss. But no matter what that method is, I will say this for the 100th time, it has to be utilizing some sort of calorie deficit, period. So we're all actually working to eat in a calorie deficit, no matter what the eating style is. So we were just talking about macronutrients. I'm just going to hit on a little bit more about what they are. So the protein, fats, and carbohydrates, those are the 3 macronutrients that are spelled out on the nutrition label. And next week, we're going to talk about the math and why those numbers show up underneath the calories. You're like, how do we know it has that many calories? Well, I'll tell you next week, so you have to come back and listen. I'll give you a little cliffhanger, but let's talk about what these elements are. So a protein is a macronutrient, which it's an essential nutrient, and a protein is a building block for repairing tissues and muscles. It also helps with a complete protein when it's being used in the body. It helps with muscle repair, which I already said, also digestive enzymes, things like that. Very, very important nutrient. So it's important to remember that it's crucial for maintaining muscle mass when we're on a weight loss journey. So we're going to be working out. All of us on these weight loss journeys, we're working out. We're probably going to be strength training. If you stick with me, you're definitely going to be lifting weights. And protein is so important, not just for generalized health and optimal body function, but so you can repair your muscles after those incredible workouts that you're going to be doing to get you to your weight loss goals. It also keeps your skin and your hair and your nails looking good. So that's always nice, right? Beauty benefits are always great. So what are fats? Fats are, of course, macronutrients, which we've already established. Fats provide our body with energy, support cell function, and aid in absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. So that would be vitamin A, D, E, and K. Fat also plays a role in hormone production and maintaining healthy skin and hair, just like protein. So the hormone discussion, another series that I hope to have on here. It's extremely complex, and I actually want to try to have some guests to talk about this. But if you are a woman in her 40s, I'm almost 41. It's almost my birthday. Oh my gosh. But I have to recommend this book. I love it. It's called The Hormone Cure, and you can get it on Amazon. It's by Dr. Sarah Gottfried. I believe she's an OBGYN. It's an incredible book, and it's super simple to understand. And she actually goes through these recommendations for certain symptoms that you might be experiencing as a woman. And what I love the most about her protocols is that each of them always starts with lifestyle changes. So if she's like, you feel lethargic, sleepy all the time, listless, listen, she goes, lifestyle changes first. Increase your physical activity. Look at what you're eating. Then she talks about potential supplementation or going to the physician to maybe consider hormone replacement therapy. It's an incredible book. I praise it not because of the nitty-gritty details of supplementation that she offers and really good solutions. And I actually trialed one of the solutions she had in there for high cortisol, because I have high cortisol. But what I love is that she's like, make sure that you're getting enough sleep. Are you working out? What types of food are you eating? She doesn't just straight go into, you need hormone replacement therapy, or you need to be on medication, or you need to go see your doctor. She really emphasizes the importance of smart nutrition and using your body the way it was supposed to be used, moving your body, not just stuck in a chair all day. So it's such a good book. Sarah Gottfried, MD, The Hormone Cure. Go get it. Of course, you can get on Amazon or any of the bookstores. There's also a really great episode of the Huberman podcast. It's like a 3-hour long episode where he interviews her, and that's where I heard about this book. So definitely go check both of those things out, because I know hormone and eating for hormone health and balancing hormone health, especially for women, is a hot topic these days. So I definitely wanted to make sure that you checked out this book and also, went over and listened to Huberman Lab. I don't know what episode it is, but you could probably Google it pretty quickly. Sarah Gottfried on Andrew Huberman's podcast. So what are some things with fat in them? So I bet you could think of some things really quickly, like mayonnaise, butter, oil. Healthy fats are in avocados, olive oil, like I said, nuts, seeds, fish like salmon. I love salmon. And then there's the unhealthy fats like trans fats, which are found in like fried foods, a lot of processed snacks, and saturated fats are found in fatty cuts of meat, butter, full fat dairy. Now, the types of fat that we're eating, a whole nother discussion, of course. But for today, I just want you to understand what a fat is and what it does for the body. And we'll talk about the what to eat in another episode in this series. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates get a bad rap, and I hate that. I want everyone to say, I love carbohydrates. Unless you are diabetic, that might not be something you want to shout out. But carbohydrates are an essential nutrient, so we have to give them their due. We have to eat them if our body allows us to eat them and can break them down. And I'm sensitive to that because diabetes runs in my family. Thank goodness. Thank you, Jesus. I do not have diabetes. I'm doing my very best to take care of my body so that doesn't happen. But I'm always kind of sensitive to the carbohydrates conversation. But if one doesn't have diabetes or any other medical condition that would cause them harm if they ate too many or a particular amount of carbohydrates, we really should be eating them. Why? Because carbohydrates are the body's primary source of energy. They break down into glucose, which is sugar. It's the sugar the body needs, breaks down during digestion, and it fuels cells. It's important not to leave them out. And again, I'm not trying to bash on ketogenic diets or other eating styles that eliminate carbohydrates or eat them in extremely low levels. I'm just a very big advocate for eating a balanced, well-rounded diet. And especially so if we're on a weight loss journey, because we're going to be eating less food than we typically do, and we're going to be working out. So we need to have high quality food. We need to make sure we are eating all the nutrients we can because we're going to be eating less and using more. Just some examples of carbohydrates are, whole grains, so brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, vegetables, sweet potatoes, broccoli, legumes, lentils, chickpeas, and also fruits, honeys, and then refined carbs. So that would be like white bread, sugar cereals, things like that, all those pastries, all those really, what I would call junk foods. And hey, they taste good, but they're not really great for us and can cause inflammation and things like that. So carbohydrates are in fruits, vegetables, and grains. So there's so many healthy foods that contain carbohydrates. So I hate that they get such a bad rap because they are essential. Speaking of providing the energy source for our body, let's talk about the word metabolism. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is the process by which our body converts food to energy. It is pretty important. And that is the reason that we eat, is so we can have optimal metabolic function. And so we have energy for our body to function. This is literally our body. Metabolism is literally our body doing the work every day to keep us alive. On top of that, so when we're talking about weight loss, we need to understand something called the basal metabolic rate. So it's often just listed as BMR. The basal metabolic rate is the number of calories your body needs to maintain basic functions like breathing and circulation and rest. So that number, which we'll talk about next week when we talk about the math of nutrition for weight loss, that number literally means this is your absolute required minimum of calories to stay alive. So if you were just to lay flat on the ground for 24 hours a day, doing nothing, like you just literally laid there, that's that number. So it's like just your breathing, you might be thinking, you might be looking around, but this is not you moving around, doing the dishes, picking up the baby stuff off the ground, putting the kids in the bath. That's not that's different. That's more energy that requires us to have more energy. That's why we eat. So this number, basal metabolic rate, is a rate that we have to calculate when we're doing our weight loss calculations. Again, we'll do it next week so we can know what the absolute minimum is that our body needs to stay alive. Next, we need to talk about something a little more complex. It's called the thermic effect of food. The thermic effect of food is the energy your body uses to digest, absorb, and process food. So why does this matter? So for example, protein has a higher thermal effect of food than carbohydrates or fat, meaning it burns more calories during digestion, which is something to keep in your back pocket. And another argument to eat high protein, which it's very interesting, but it's something kind of fun and cool to think about. It's like, okay, well, I just ate this food. Well, I'm burning calories sitting here right now. I just ate lunch when we got home from church. Like, my body is using energy to digest that food. How cool is that? So I'm not even on a walk. I'm not doing a run. I'm not lifting weights. It's just my body's need, like the energy that is required to digest that food. So that's the thermic effect of food. And in a lot of calorie equations, this is taken into account. But I wanted to bring that vocabulary word up because it does come up frequently when we're talking about weight loss calculations and how many calories we need for our weight loss. So a lot of calculations do add in X amount for the thermal effect of food. So we have appropriate amounts of energy based on how many calories we're eating for weight loss. Well, that's where nutrition tracking comes in. And I do have nutrition tracking on our list to talk about. And basically, nutrition tracking is when you are tracking your calories or your intake of energy on a digital tracker, or you're manually tracking somehow. So most people nowadays use an app to do this, but this is going to ultimately be the supercharger to your weight loss. So I have to tell you, every time that I stick to tracking my food, and I stick to my calorie budget, but more so like I'm using my food tracker. I'm checking in every day. Even if it's not totally perfect, I always lose weight, period, end of story. Like, it's that simple. And I really feel that's just because we're more vigilant. We're actually seeing like, oh, I've actually had enough food for the day. Like, my body's good. Like, I don't need to eat more. If I'm eating more, it's just because I'm bored or I have no other reason to eat more. It's just because it's in front of me. And when we see the number of calories that we've been eating throughout the day, it really helps us make that decision. It keeps us fueled, but not over-fueled, where we have a surplus and our body's tacking that onto our hips and our thighs and our tummy and saving it for later. So tracking your nutrition tracking is crucial for weight loss. The other thing that you'll need to hear, you're going to start hearing about, and it kind of goes along with nutrition tracking, is portion sizes and serving sizes. So serving size is an element that's listed on our food labels. So if you look on your food labels, you'll see serving size, and serving size is the amount of food that the rest of the food label is based on. So for example, the cereal that we talked about earlier, we were talking about the serving size was 1 cup, and it was 150 calories for 1 cup. And then if you looked down further on the food label, you would see some other quantities for proteins, fats, carbs, sugars, maybe some micronutrients, vitamins, minerals. That is all based on the quantity of the serving size, which for our example is 1 cup. So start getting used to serving sizes and looking at those. And a really easy tip here I want you to take is that even before you start tracking your nutrition, one of the things that you can start doing to get your feet wet here is take a couple weeks and just eat the recommended serving size on your food. So start looking at the food labels and just eat whatever the serving size is. You might lose a little bit of weight, but the reason I recommend doing that is a lot of times it's a huge eye opener that you're overeating. So I have this whole story that I used to eat peanut butter toast. I still eat peanut butter toast, but I was using like so much peanut butter. And peanut butter is a calorie dense food. And I'm going to talk about nutrition density next. In fact, but meaning like a small amount of it has a lot of calories in it and a lot of nutrients, which is great. It's actually a great thing to use for a snack. But I was eating so much of it that I was blasting my calorie intake for the day. And I wasn't losing weight. And it was one of the reasons I wasn't losing weight. I was going overboard in my calories. I had a surplus. When I started using the serving size, which is most peanut butter jars will say the serving size is 2 tablespoons. Yes, I know that from memory. But when I used 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, I was happily surprised that that was quite a lot, and it was totally enough. I was still getting to eat the peanut butter, and I didn't feel like I was depriving myself. I was just making a smarter food choice by not overdoing it. So that's my peanut butter story, and my campaign for you to start looking at the serving sizes on your food labels and start thinking about portion sizes, which is the other definition I want to talk about, which is the amount of food you choose to eat. So just because it says 2 tablespoons of peanut butter doesn't mean you absolutely have to eat that. It's just a great place to start when you're thinking about revamping your portion sizes of food on your plate. So misunderstanding, having overly sized portions, or not paying attention to serving sizes when we're calculating foods can really lead to overeating. So these 2 concepts are something you want to start implementing in your life that you can do now. You can get a food scale. You can measure out just using, a measuring cup with things like that, with your rice, with your cereals. One of the things that I always recommend that people start with is condiments. So salad dressing, and things like peanut butter, mayonnaise, oils, butters, things like that. Those are all really high calories typically. And most of us are just like dousing our salads with, even if it's just olive oil, olive oil is so good for you, but you can blast your calorie budget if you're not paying attention to the portion size that you're putting on your salad. So I always recommend starting with, condiments and salad dressings, oils, butters, things like that, because those are high calorie foods and most of us are usually completely overeating in those food areas. The next definition is nutrient density. So the nutrient density refers to the amount of beneficial nutrients of vitamins, minerals, fiber, even macronutrients in a food relative to the calorie content. So like I said, peanut butter is high in fat, high in it has carbohydrate, it has protein, it has vitamins, it has minerals, especially if you get the all natural organic peanut butter. Super, super good for you. But just a little bit of it is, it has all that stuff in it. So it's nutrient dense. Same thing with like seeds and nuts. Nutrient dense. So this matters because eating nutrient dense foods helps you stay full while supporting your overall health. And especially when you're dialing down portion sizes, this is getting in again to the conversation of what to eat. Keep the concept of nutrient dense food in your back pocket, because it is going to be one of your strategies to making food choices down the line when we talk about what to eat. Okay, let's talk about our final word, and that is satiety. So satiety means the feeling of fullness and satisfaction after eating. So why does this matter? So focusing on foods that promote satiety, like high protein and high fiber foods, helps us control hunger and reduce overeating. So nutrient density and satiety, I really think go together. Understanding the concept of satiety helps us make those smart nutrition choices when we're on a weight loss journey, because we want to make sure that we're feeling full and satisfied when we're on our weight loss journey. We don't want to be feeling deprived and hungry, because when we're feeling that way, we're just not going to stick with it. So making sure we're feeling satisfied and satiated really helps us stick to the meal tracking and the portion sizing and the food selections. And it kind of comes with a little bit of experimentation and just kind of figuring out what works for you. And another little tip that I can give you is that down a glass of water before any meal, even snacks, to help with your satiety, to get some volume in your stomach. So even if you're eating the perfectly portioned food that will help you feel full and get to that full feeling. So you're feeling like you ate a very hearty meal, even though you might be eating smaller portions than usual because you're on a weight loss journey. Okay, guys, I know that was a lot of vocabulary. I love this stuff so much. And if it inspired you to learn more, I'm so excited. And if you have any questions about any of those concepts, vocabulary words, please pop them down into the YouTube comments or send me a question. There's a link for questions in the show notes. And if this episode inspired you, share it with a friend and leave me a review on Apple if you're listening on Apple. And don't forget to tune in next week as we dive deeper into the world of nutrition and weight loss, because next episode, we're going into the math of nutrition. Don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz at the end, but you'll want to listen to this one because knowing how to calculate your very own calories, your custom calorie needs is where the magic starts to happen for women when we're talking about healthy weight loss and when we're taking our weight loss seriously. And I'm pretty sure that's you, my friend. So thanks for listening to the Health Hobby Podcast. Check you next week. Hey there, me again. Quick disclaimer. Here on the Health Hobby Podcast, I share tips, insights, and ideas to help you on your weight loss and fitness journey. But I'm not your doctor or your personal health guru. Before diving into any nutrition or fitness plans I talk about, make sure to check in with your healthcare provider. They know your body best. Think of this podcast as your cheerleader and a place for healthy living idea inspiration, not your prescription pad. Stay safe, stay smart, and let's crush those goals together. Until next time.